Hey everybody. Hey everybody again. Lots of hey everybody's. It's Jonathan. Happy Wednesday to all you lacrosse parents and goalies and athletes and coaches and people skipping work and skipping school to listen to me. I love it. Christine Snyder, first one in, you win. Good job. Jonathan Cooper Redfern, good to see you. Adam Hetrick, Jen George, welcome everybody. So this is like my peeps. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So where you are, I bet it's warmer than where I am. Woke up this morning, it was minus 41 Celsius with the wind chill, which is basically the same. So ridiculous, like ridiculous coldness. But you know what? I'm one of those really annoying people when I believe you can't complain about the weather. You can only prepare for it, right? That's it. So you can't complain about the weather. You can only prepare for that. And you can tell it to your goalie every single day. If they're complaining about the weather, if it's like sunny or hot or cold or wet or whatever, you can't complain about the weather. You can just prepare for it. So that's my message for you today. That's it, everybody. Thanks. Bye. See ya. We'll just end there. Helen Evans, good to see you. Mike Simmons in from Long Island. Mike, I got to call Sal Licasio. I have not done it yet. I've been waiting for the new year, so hopefully I can do that. But great to see everybody. Lots of good stuff going on today. Of course, as always, I am a little late to the game, but so far so good. So lots of great stuff to talk about. I hope you guys are excited about lacrosse season. Do me a favor and just post, just leave a comment like when your season starts. And you know, how about this? Tell me when your season starts, and then on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like 100% ready, let me know how you feel your goalie is ready for the season, right? Like 10 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 1 out of 10. But just let me know when you start and how you're feeling. And so that's it's always good to kind of know to gauge where everybody's at. Ending a sentence with a preposition, if I may. But so listen, I'm reminded by folks in the YouTube space and the Facebook space and the iTunes space to just kind of do a quick little intro. Hey, if this is the first time you've ever heard me, I'm Coach Edwards, Olympian Jonathan Edwards. I run lacrossegoalietips.com. We've got a lot of new people coming to the group this year that are new to my work, even though I've been at it for a really long time. So I run the longest consecutive running blog at lacrossegoalietips.com about lacrosse goalies, a micro, small niche in the sports world, but I love it, and I've been talking about it now for a really long time. Started coaching right out of high school, and which was an epically long time ago now, but I've seen a lot of what's come and gone in this sport, in this position. And as you learned from me, I'm a big proponent of protection and keeping our goalies happy. And I believe that where the sport of lacrosse goes is directly related to the lacrosse goalie position. Okay, and more on that later. Chaz Carney, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. And so really excited to be kind of I want to say like the Pied Piper of the lacrosse goalie position when it comes to this sport, and it's been an honor to watch it grow. I'm originally from Boston, but I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I have a Canadian wife, and I've been up here since 2001. And I started coaching goalies online back in 2001, basically, and that's where this has evolved. So, so some people say like, you've been doing this for so long, how come you're not all over the internet? And the reason I'm not all over the internet is because my website, I started that website and I started blogging in a particular way that then later Google didn't like. And I was so deep in it and so far down that path. And to be honest, there's not a ton of revenue in this position, in this industry, but have yet to kind of go back and fix it all. So I don't game the system. I don't run. I feel really strongly. I don't do any sort of affiliate linking where you read one of my posts and it makes me $4 because you bought a chest protector somewhere. That's not cool to me. I just think like the advice you get from me is all about your goalie and your goalie's success. And so I think anytime you throw that, on top of something, you're tarnishing your message just slightly, or you're just doing clickbait. I'm not about that. I want to give you like the things you need for your goalie to succeed no matter what level they're at. All right. And so some of you have been with me for a really long time. You know this, you get it. And I appreciate every single one of you. For all the new people though, who may have been just coming to me or who are new to the position, this is the place I want you to be. So whether it's on my page or in our group at Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future, I'm very much about looking down the road and knowing what your goalie is going to need to succeed at the next level, right? It's one thing to get a goalie and have them win at like U10. We can basically gimmick them up and give them tricks to win then. But if your goalie has high school and collegiate aspirations, we talk to that, okay? And I don't want that to scare anybody off. We just begin with the end in mind, right? Like anything, like Stephen Covey said in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you begin with the end in mind. All right, so don't fear that. And as I said that, I see like 3 people leave the group. It's okay. Yeah, so anyway, lots to talk about today. A couple housekeeping items. So head on over to lacrossegoalietips.com. If you're new, download the cheat sheets, okay? You read that and read the Lacrosse Goalie Manifesto that's in there. You're going to love that. And also, for those of you that are kind of more interested in athletic performance in general, if your goalie deals with automatic like negative thoughts, negative thinking, which most athletes do, head on over to my other site at athletespecific.com and download the automatic negative thought PDF. All right, and that will put you on the list over there. But also, it's a great resource to help explain to your goalie why they're having negative thoughts, what they mean, right? Doesn't mean they're them, but that it's going to give them a way to deal with that and understand why it's coming, why they're coming. So, and then follow me. A couple things that people might not know here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. TikTok, I'm on TikTok. I'm at Olympic Jonathan. So tell your kids to follow me on TikTok because I know they're all there. And if you want to totally waste your day, get on TikTok because it's just really addictive. So still working on our Lacrosse Goalie book. Okay, was working on goalie communication today. Was writing this morning. I'm up and early at 4:00 now, writing for at least 2 hours on my book every single day. And today we're working on goalie communication. So if your goalie you can just tip this in the comments as well. If your goalie struggles with communication or has never been taught communication by their coach, if they've just kind of learned it kind of haphazardly, just leave me a thumbs up in the comment box and let me know if that's where you're at, because that's where typically people end up. Is their goalies like they know they're supposed to talk, but they're not really sure what to say or when, and so I believe it's really a lost art. So working on that. And then after this, for those of you at 2:30 Eastern. In my other group, Raising High Performing Athletes, I'm talking about how to deal with how to communicate with difficult coaches. Okay, one of the things that I think is really important, it's derailing a lot of athletes, is the idea that they are when they're pushing, when they're trying out for teams, they might be sitting on the bench or not getting the time that they want, and the coach isn't really giving them what they need in terms to move forward. And so I've been dealing with this with a lot with my athletes in a number of different sports. Just as they go further up the food chain, the coaches are less empathetic. They're less apt to have the skills to basically communicate with an athlete. They don't necessarily want to do that. They're overwhelmed by certain things. But we need to flip the switch and get our athletes to be better communicators. I had a meeting yesterday with a principal of a sports school here in Calgary, and she was saying that industry-wide, the rule is like our athletes are becoming less and less resilient. All right, and especially for our goalies, we don't want to have that happen. So come join me over there, and just search for Raising High Performing Athletes in Facebook, and you'll find it. All right, so let's get started, shall we? A little bit of a longer introduction than I was planning, but good stuff nonetheless. So the first thing, I got an email from a mom whose daughter just loves the sport and wants to play in college, but might not have the skills to play in college. This came at a really interesting time because I've one of my Lacrosse Goalie University clients, where I do goalie audits every month for them. This goalie's I've been working with now for like a year. Hardworking kid, good kid, making progress, but is kind of coming to the end of their career, their high school career, and just wondering what to do next. And so I want to just kind of start by saying I was an unlikely Division One recruit. Like my parents are both musicians. I didn't have any older brothers or sisters. I was a chubby fifth grader, like going into like eighth grade. I was still kind of, I guess by about eighth grade, I was starting to get into sports. I was starting to become athletic. Lacrosse, I was loving lacrosse, and I was at a school that they had a first year lacrosse program in a really difficult league. And so I was thrown into one of those situations as an eighth grader. I was playing at the high school, and we were playing basically a JV schedule that first year. So I'm playing as an eighth grader. I'm playing against like grade 11 kids, right? So it's like a 4 year swing in ability. And so just kind of thrown into the fire and just loving it, like loving the game, but not quite having the skills yet. But one of the things that I just wanted to talk about is this idea of, as parents, our kids start every sport just because they kind of enjoy it, right? It happens, but is rare when an athlete will actually strategically go into a sport with an athletic ability and then just go like, okay, I'm going to be a baseball player, right? Or I'm going to be a football player, or whatever. That happens, but it's rare. Most athletes just start playing and it's fun and they've got buddies, and that's something that I think as a coach, like I underestimated that with my own kids. Where I live, like sports the lacrosse scene here is really weird. I'm not a big fan of it. It's very toxic. I didn't put my kids into box lacrosse. I'm not a fan of that as a sport here in Canada. I like it more in the U.S. But the bottom line was my kids never developed any real tight bonds with their teammates, and that's really important. But we start as the for the love of the game. And then over time, it's like, well, the path of this sport takes you into college, right? And so it's natural for, kids to kind of migrate that way and say, okay, I want to be a collegiate goalie, but not know yet what that means, right? And we all know this as adults. It's like, your kid, they could want to be a YouTuber, right? Or they could want to be, you can name anything, right? Like, oh, I want to be a chef, right? This is an interesting thing that is being exacerbated by social media. This is really fascinating. I learned about this a couple weeks ago. So when you go on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and you get infatuated, like whether it's lacrosse videos or like my son, we ski, and he's got powder videos, right? Guys doing like ridiculous tricks through powder. This past weekend, he's in Fernie, British Columbia, and they get like 36 centimeters of snow, and it's just like it's just like those YouTube clips. But the thing that happens in the brain is that that your kid thinks they're that person, right? They think they're doing, their brain is like living out that experience as if it is happening to them like right now. And that can be helpful, but it can also, the flip side of that is that, well, then they have to go out to the work to do it. And this blew me away when I really finally understood, because I teach visualization techniques, and that's what you're trying to do, right? Is you're trying to get the brain to be in this point where the brain feels like it's already experienced the thing it wants to experience. So when your son or daughter is looking at Instagram clips of collegiate goalies, they're that goalie, right? They're Alex Reddy from Denver. They're Megan Taylor from Maryland. They're there, but they haven't yet done any work to get them there. So now is when the goalie, is kind of stuck in limbo. And now they have to put in the work. And so I wrote about this in my book, in An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life, which I hope all of you have a copy of, because this is really going to help you have this conversation with your athlete. But this idea that, all right, to be a successful athlete, you have 3 key abilities, okay? And to go deep on this, if you go to athletespecific.com, I have a free course for both parents and athletes. So I have separate ones. So if you want to watch this together with your athlete, this will be super helpful. So 3 abilities: your physical ability, your technical ability, and your tactical ability, right? So the interesting thing that you need to do with your athlete is go, okay, listen, you are an athlete who plays the lacrosse goalie position. Okay? I've been preaching about this for a really long time. But you have to focus that you are an athlete who plays the lacrosse goalie position, okay? Critical. So because what happens is that when your kid loves lacrosse, they love being in the net, right? They love taking shots. They love giving shots, right? They love getting outside and it's doing whatever. But what happens is they get lost in the technical stuff, right? That's all the technical stuff, right? You're doing drills, you're running with your teammates, like all that stuff. But are they becoming an athlete physically who can play the sport at the next level? Now, I believe that every athlete, that every kid, I really do believe this, unless your kid is missing a limb, all right, but even then, there's probably a kid out there who's done it. They can become a collegiate level athlete who's capable of playing the lacrosse goalie position, okay? We don't see this as much now, but as recently as like 10 years ago, big kids, like for lack of a better term, fat kids could be a goalie and have fast hands and win. Some of the greatest goalies in history have been what you would say were looked out of shape, but they became really good lacrosse goalies. Sal Licasio, Mike Simmons, who's in here, who knows? Sal Licasio, probably the greatest. Like if he came out today and played lacrosse, he would still crush it. And in college, that guy was like 250 plus. Maybe that's a bit much. Maybe I won't say he was that big, but he's a big dude. Right. So, but I had a recent conversation with one of our Lacrosse Goalie University members, whose daughter was like, it finally clicked for her, like her sophomore year of high school. Finally, she's like, I want this. Once you have that, then you can start to go, all right, here's what we need to do. We need to get better physically. We need to be working on this and this and this. And then you have created what's called what I call the anchor. So if your athlete is committed, great. But if your athlete is committed, but they haven't quite made that connection yet, then this is the next phase of being an athlete. It's sitting down and going, all right, what about your game needs to improve, right? What does your coach say? What is your, what is some, oh, you played on a travel team this summer or this fall, and that coach said you need to work on this, this, and this. How'd you feel about that? Yes or no? Oh yeah, I get it. Well, okay, let's create a plan for that. So that Lacrosse Goalie University member I started to tell you about, the thing for them was getting around a qualified strength and conditioning coach that could help her. Right. And that was really hard for her because she had never really embraced that yet. But she did, and she took that leap. And it was a big leap because socially it was different, going to work with a new coach, like, working on her body, and taking that. But that was the thing that needed to take it to the next level. This last year I worked with a Division I women's goalie, and, even at the Division I collegiate level, this goalie had issues physically, strength issues that she had never addressed. And she had always gotten by on the technical side, right? And it's just a matter of time before that kind of kicks in. So your goalie, I believe strongly that your goalie can become collegiate level, but they have to make that connection. And here's the other thing about college is that there is a place to play for everyone, okay? And what happens is this is where the dream always starts, okay? It's I want to be a Division I goalie. Male or female, doesn't really matter. But the goalie, why? Because that's what they see online. That's what they see in Inside Lacrosse or US Lacrosse Magazine or all that stuff. They're seeing the alphas, right? They're seeing the top of the heap, right? So it's okay for your kid to say, "Hey, I want to be a Division I goalie," but as they go down that path, now it's the same path. Where you end up depends on the athlete's their God-given talent, their work ethic, their all that stuff like that. The path is the same. Where your goalie ends up only comes down the road, right? So I wanted to be a Division I goalie, but along the way, I learned about Division III schools, right? And then okay, and then way later, growing up in New England, I knew nothing about MCLA schools until I was living in Las Vegas in 2000, and I took a couple kids from the youth lacrosse program out there up to BYU, right? Brigham Young University, Provo, Utah, Mormon school, knew nothing about it. Found out it's like a Division I lacrosse program, and with their own like TV channel and their locker room and all the gear and all the stuff, and then it was like, oh wait, I could come here and have an amazing lacrosse experience, right? So that only comes down the road. So if your goalie's like young and wants to be a Division I goalie and they have no idea what that means yet, don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about it. The process will work its way out, and they're not going to be disappointed along the way. They're just going to know where they slot in. So Division I, Division II, Division III, MCLA Division I, MCLA Division II, NAIA schools, right? Canadian University of Field Lacrosse Association, like up in Canada, McGill. I mean, these are like schools that rival like our Ivy League schools in the United States, right? So it's like, where do you want to end up, right? So don't worry yet. Don't like worry now that, oh, my kid wants to be a Division I goalie, and they, it's like, what was that movie Shallow Hal, right? Where he was looking at the girl and all he saw was like Gwyneth Paltrow, but it turned out she was actually like 300 pounds, right? Like, I doubt your goalie's like that, looking at themselves like, hey, I'm just the shit, pardon me, but you know what I mean? As they go along, they'll know where they slot in. Now, what happens is that sometimes goalies get to a certain point and they have been putting in the work and they have been trying to figure it out, and they had big aspirations. Excuse me. They had big aspirations, and now they're finding out, like, grade 11, grade 10, grade 11, going to grade 12. Maybe I'm not going to be that Division I goalie, but that's okay, because now there's all these other places you can go to school. Scott Gastany, who's in the group, everybody, if you don't know Scott, his son, I've known his son for a long time, probably going on 6 years at least, and he ended up at Northern Arizona, right? MCLA school. He's going into his senior year. Scott's all bummed out because his son's gonna be done with lacrosse. It's like tears. But here's a kid who ended up found a home, found an MCLA school, but in the meantime started playing lacrosse for Team Mexico, right? And he's been to like 2 world championships. He's like ridiculously fast. He scored a goal last year. He was on ESPN. Like, it's gonna work its way out. Your goalie is gonna find a home. Don't stress over it right now. Okay, so I hope that makes some sense. Okay. Joel Rose writes, "Heck, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up." That is so true. That is totally true. And so this is a really interesting topic, right? So if your goalie, right, is stuck in this kind of social media trap where they see themselves being that goalie, but they're not going to put in the work, you just got to remind them to put in the work, right? They got to be disappointed at some point, because the disappointment is going to either trigger the work or it's not, right? As a dad, I worry about that with my own son. Like, I swear to God, right? I just worry that, he's going to be living in a van down by the river, right? Don't we all? Okay. So anyway, don't stress over it. Just keep pushing forward. And if I can help you, then reach out. That's totally cool too. Okay. So, so adding a marker, moving on to our next question. Okay. So I got 2 kind of similar questions that I'll touch on here. One was, how to help your goalie. This is by Brian McAdam, I believe. And then Dave Moreland. One was from, one's from Colorado, and the other one is from Pennsylvania. Okay. So the Brian asks, so how to help your goalie be the best they can be and to create positive, productive work habits. Okay. And then Dave was wondering, like, how to keep your goalie motivated and excited to be a great goalie. So this all kind of falls into place with the last question a little bit too. But I was writing a chapter for my next book, and one of the topics that's kind of come up is removing friction. Okay, and in my book, in An Athlete's Guide to Winning Sports and Life, I write about like, okay, it's one thing to have an athletic goal, right? And this for all of you, this will help your athletes tremendously, right? So you have a goal, and the goal is, okay, I want to be a Division I lacrosse player, or maybe as an adult goal that's not like, let's say you're trying to lose weight, or you want to kick a habit, a kick that you know that if you kick it, like, so mine is kicking Pepsi, right? That's my thing this year. I'm going to kick Pepsi. And but to remove the friction to make that goal happen, you just have to identify like daily habits. And so as a parent, one of the ways kind of I look at this is that, we all know that when your athlete has a practice to go to, or, has a game coming up, it's very easy to make all these other things make sense, like eat your vegetables, drink enough water, get enough sleep, those sorts of, but if that goal's not there, then it causes them to just kind of lay on the couch and play Fortnite all day, right? Like, so we've got to create this environment to have success, right? So, a question that I get, and I hate hearing about this, like on websites, and people say like, oh, kids are overbooked and they're overdone and they're over this or over that. Well, wait a second. Like, if your kid is like loving lacrosse, and oh, by the way, they play basketball in the winter, and they're in the band, and and they're doing all this stuff, and yeah, they're asleep in the car when you're driving them. They're not tired though. It's the parent that gets tired, right? It's the parent that gets fatigued. Usually because you're sacrificing the things that really matter to you for them, okay? So, but we can create an environment for our athlete to have success. It's why we have Olympic training centers. It's like, as an Olympian, I went to Lake Placid. I went to live in Lake Placid, New York. Why? Because I wanted to be in this environment that just fed that goal, all right? So what happens is that when you create an environment around your athlete, they automatically have the right habits. Okay. So, at the Olympic Training Center, we all got up in the morning and we all went and trained. We all, ate in the cafeteria. We all went to sports med. We all, there's no question about it. Like, you've already decided. There's a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Hardy who, is a PhD in organizational psychology, and I think he wrote about this idea of just that you create this environment, and then you make the decision once, and then you never have to make it again, right? So like when I made the decision, okay, I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and write, I made the decision once and I was done. The challenge with our athletes sometimes though is that they're like, oh, I want to be a Division I athlete, but then it never sticks in their head on a daily basis. It's kind of there, but maybe mom or dad is a little like, I don't know, she's still like, her room's still a mess. I've told you guys a story about an athlete I worked with about 5 or 6 years ago who was a Division I recruit, scholarship level, and the mom, like, dad was like, this is amazing. The mom though was like, no, they don't know my son as well as I know my son. His room's a mess. Right. And so how do they want to give him like $200,000 and he still doesn't clean his room? They don't know that. I know him. So in that case, like, the mom is like totally holding this kid back. Like, her perception is back because in her mind, she never had that goal. Right. The son did. And then along the way, the dad got it. Like, yeah, okay, our son's going to be a Division I lacrosse player. And so dad's all in, son's all in. And by the way, this kid was awesome. Like, this is the kid that stays like late at practice. And I remember we're practicing indoors in a hockey rink because the weather outside was bad. And he's there. He's got a bucket of lacrosse balls, and he's picking a ball out of the bucket, putting it in a stick, and then trying to throw it through that little hole in the penalty box where the ref comes to speak to the scorekeeper. He wouldn't leave until he got one. And then he left me with all the balls to pick up. But anyway, but the mom in this case, though, she was like, there's no way in hell my son is going to be a Division I lacrosse player, because she believed that his ability to clean his room was directly tied to his ability to do basically anything else in his life, right? And so I recommend that you get excited about the goal that your athlete has. And The problem though that comes into play here though is that a lot of parents though have difficulty going after their own goals, right? Or maybe they had a goal when they were young and they failed it, and now they think, oh, that's destined to be their kid's fault, or not the kid's fault, but it's going to be the same thing that happens to their kids, and that's not true. Okay, there is a term called being a transitional character. If you Google it, it's kind of interesting, but it's basically, there's stories of families where like the grandparents were on welfare and the great grandparents were on welfare and the parents were on welfare, and then all of a sudden they get a kid and he's like a millionaire entrepreneur, right? Or addictions or anything really negative like that. There are stories. And there's stories abound about people who all of a sudden they go, not me, not anymore, I'm going to make it happen. So if, as the parent, you have to kind of give yourself a head check and go, like, listen, am I in on this goal, right? Because if I'm in on this goal and my son or my daughter's in on it, then what can we do if we do it together? Like, what can we do if we just go, yeah, let's do this? Because if, as the parent, you're coming to practice, and I doubt, for a lot of you listening to me, I doubt you fall into this category, but I'm sure you have this little bit of like, oh my God, we're spending a lot of time on this, a lot of money, whatever. Is this going to work out? Is this all worth it? I get it. But what happens in your brain when you just go, yeah, let's pardon me, but let's fucking do this? There's a difference to that. I teach that to my goalies. Like, if your goalie's in the cage and they're making saves and they're whatever, and they're going through the motions, they're going to be one type of goalie. But if your goalie gets in the cage and just like, there's nothing that's going to get by me, right? They're going to play differently, right? And so, but look at that on a macro level and go like, all right, how can I help my goalie be the best that they can be and create positive work habits? I would say, all right, as a parent, what could you work on? And one of the best things to do is to like pick an instrument, go buy a ukulele for like $20 at the music store and go, you know what? I'm going to teach myself the ukulele 20 minutes a day. I'm going to give myself 15 minutes a day. I'm going to put a timer on my phone. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch a YouTube clip and I'm going to play the ukulele for 15 minutes. That's your goal. Now, I've got some parents who, like, they're triathletes, and, like, I don't know how the hell that works. I really don't know how you can be a triathlete and be successfully married and have a kid. I met a guy once who said that his running was the best when his marriage was at his worst. And I was like, no, that won't be me. But anyway, I'm always amazed at people who can do that. But think of, like, okay, what is something that I could do as the parent so that I can now relate to my kid and then pass that on, those things that I'm learning on to my kid, those struggles, right? Like, and so it doesn't have to be huge. It can be tiny. You can be learning how to juggle, right? That could be a fun one. Now, those of you guys know, I'm not a fan of juggling in terms of creating a good lacrosse goalie, but I'm just talking about some unique, novel habit that's good for you. Maybe you could do it with your kids. Who knows? So there's a million things that you could do. But getting into that headspace of like, okay, let's do this. And you're going into the unknown. You really are going into the unknown. And we know from brain science, like the body does not like the unknown, right? We like certainty. We like consistency. And this whole thing about this whole lacrosse process, this whole sport process, is that you don't know what's going to happen at the end of it. But that's where you have to have faith. All right. Now, I'm not preaching to anybody. This isn't a religious thing, but basically that's what it is that when you believe in something better, when you believe in something that you can't see, it takes faith to take that next step. That's it. Right. So creating an environment, right, is just like, okay, listen, we believe that to be the best lacrosse goalie that, my son or my daughter can be, it's like, all right, Jimmy, listen, here's what we're going to do. But first you go to Jimmy and say like, okay, what do you think it takes to become a really good lacrosse goalie, and have him go through the process. Well, and I did this with my sports psychologist when I was young. I take my athletes through this all the time. I'm like, okay, what habits do you think you need to adopt to get to that goal, right? So like to run a marathon, you don't run a marathon tomorrow, but you run a little bit, or maybe you've got to buy a set of shoes, or maybe you've got to, to reduce the friction, you just got to make sure you got the shoes laid out and the shorts and the shirt and the water bottle, and you're just ready to roll out of bed and go. No friction, right? So you get that list down with your goalie. Say, okay, we need. I'll share with you this story. So I was writing about this for my book. For all my Patriots fans out there, but so we all know who Julian Edelman is, right? He's become now one of the greatest wide receivers in football history. Okay, in the playoffs, and little guy was not a wide receiver in college. He was a quarterback, and he also ran. So he basically ran as much as he threw for in college. But I want to share with you this story because this was awesome. So he gets drafted. The New England Patriots bring him in for a workout, and they see him run and they see him throw, but they're kind of going like, "We're going to draft you as a wide receiver," and he's like, "I'm not a wide receiver. I've been a quarterback. I can run. I'm quick, but I'm not good at catching stuff." And the Patriots basically said, yeah, we're going to draft you as a wide receiver. And his dad, who was a football coach, a high school football coach, basically said, all right, you want to be a wide receiver in the NFL? We are 10,000 balls behind. That was the word. We are 10,000 balls behind. So what did they do? So they basically said, to be an NFL wide receiver, we need 10,000 balls worth of practice to get there. And so what did they do? They broke it down. And every day, every weekend, whatever, they got quarterbacks, they got the resources around the players that could throw balls so he could catch them. And he would run routes and he would catch balls. But they just put this number on it. So you can take your athlete and go, okay, listen, you want to be a Division I lacrosse goalie? Let's break that down. What kind of athlete do you need to be, right? How strong do you need to be? What kind of physical attributes do you need to have? Okay, map that all out, and then make a plan, daily, weekendly, weekly, whatever, and go, all right, Jimmy, like this is, and you can have Jimmy sign it. This is what we're gonna do. Yeah, and here's what's gonna happen. He's gonna be super excited, like right now, but it's gonna be like 10 o'clock at night and dark outside, and you know what you're gonna tell him? You're not gonna sleep on it. You can say, Jimmy, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do some push-ups. Okay, Dad, see you in the morning. No, right now. Wait, what? No, wait, Jimmy, you just told me you want to be a Division I lacrosse goalie, right? Yeah, I do. I totally do. Okay, well, what do we need to do? All right, well, we just made this list. We got to get stronger physically. Great. Let's do a push-up. But Dad, it's like time for bed. No, we're doing a push-up. Right. So you've got to get to that level. You got to make it easy. You got to reduce the friction. You got to create the habits. And this is probably one of the best lessons you can teach your kids, right? Is that, all right, you got this big goal. Like, let's say you want to be you want to be accepted to a school and your SAT needs to be a certain thing. Well, great. Every day we're working on SAT stuff, right? You just got to break it down, right? Maybe you as mom or dad, like you want to lose 20 pounds. Great. What does that entail? Well, that entails like every day being below, let's say, 100 grams of carbohydrates. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep on this, guys, please. Right? But let's say that's your goal. Every day below 100 grams of carbohydrates. Great. How'd you do today? Right? And then the next day and the next day. And before you know it, in like 21 days, in 30 days, you're going to lose 20 pounds. Right? But that's one of probably the best lessons you can teach your kids. So let's get around that, right? So this kind of ties in to I'm just going to spend a couple minutes on this last question, just because it really kind of fits into what we just talked about how to keep your goalie motivated and excited to be a great goalie. I don't know. You know what? This question comes up a lot, especially with parents, especially with kids. It's like, how do I keep my kid like motivated and excited? Well, one, social media is doing everything it can to suck the life out of your kid. Now, I don't fear technology. I don't live like that. It's not like, but I know some families where they have limits and God bless you if you can stick to them. I have not been able to figure it out with my family, but but just know that there's distractions, right? For one. But I will say this, so that confidence, we know from science now, the confidence is created by past success. Okay. You don't have confidence and then take a step forward. It's like you just take a step forward through fear and hesitation, things like that, and then you gain success, and then you do it again and again and again. And so, as long as your athlete feels like they are making progress, then and they're getting appropriate feedback from coaches and people who they respect. Notice I said people they respect because that may not be mom or dad. Sorry, but as long as they're making progress and getting good feedback, then that should tick the boxes and keep them going forward. As they see more and more success, then they're gonna they will still stay motivated. I will throw in here though, you be cognizant, be aware of the friend factor on a team. A lot of our goalies get asked to play on all these different teams, and they're basically parachuting in, playing like a weekend, and then getting out there. They have no connection to those kids. That is a very goalie thing. It takes a certain personality, but just one of the things to kind of keep your kids in the sport is to make sure they have some buddies they feel good around. All right, it is very lonely if they are getting beat up all the time and they don't have a connection with any of those kids on the team. That is not a recipe for sticking with it. But so keep that in mind. And just keep feeding them inputs if you can find them. All right, I encourage you to look around and find examples. I call them inputs, right? Stories of athletes who were just like them at their age who went on to succeed. Okay, so the best predictor, I think, of future success is where the athlete can see examples just like them, him or her, to kind of make it to the next level. Okay, and then have faith in the process. Just you don't know where this is going to end up. You just don't. Okay, and because of that, you've just got to have faith to stay with it. And that's all I can tell you there. All right, is you're not going to know. And as parents, we want to know, right? we want to know. I mean, we worry every day where our kids are going to end up and how they're going to be. Are they happy? And we just got to go from there. Okay. So listen, everybody, thank you so much for watching today. Another week, another great week. Come check out, right? So lacrossegoalietips.com. Make sure you get the cheat sheets. Please, if you know somebody who should be in our group, in the Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future group, please send them the link to join or tell them about it. But just let them know they got to answer the 3 questions, because if they don't answer the 3 questions, I don't let them in. All right. So that's we need to make sure that we're going to create the best community ever. And, we've grown a ton just in like the 8 months that when I opened it. So I want to just, I want to be past like 1,500 members here by spring, by the end of the spring. And if you want private individualized coaching for your goalie, then Lacrosse Goalie University is what I do for that. Okay. So if I can help you individually, by all means, let's get you started. You can book a call with me at lacrossegoalietips.com/call, and we can get you started and talk about your goalie and create a plan. And, but I'd be excited to work with you. All right. We got some great people here, great families. And I appreciate the energy. So post your photos in the group. Let us know about your goalie, where you play, how old they are, how they're doing. If you play on a weekend, post some photos, because it's just been a great place. So a lot of fun. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye.